Pastor Cameron,
Yes,
I'm going to ask that you prepare yourself as we commence this event to open us up in prayer.
Okay.
Cover the entire setting from start to finish, however God ordains you to do so. The platform is yours.
All right, shall we pray? Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we give you thanks, we give you glory, we give you praise for this occasion. We thank you for all of these great individuals that you have brought together to share their heart, to share their wisdom, to share their mind. And we ask that you will bless this occasion, that it will be uplifting and glorifying to you, and that you will use it to touch the hearts and minds of those that hear what is being spoken. And we ask that you will let this that we do tonight, that it will not stop here, but that it will go forth and touch many people all over the world. We pray for strength for these fathers, that they will continue to press forward to do the work that you have ordained. And we thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Good evening to our virtual audience and everyone who is listening, however you've decided to tune in this evening. And for those who will catch us on replay. We want to say welcome to part 2 of a father's love language. What are you communicating to your children? I bring you light, love, and hope from the House of Love Illionaires Incorporated. My name is Sabrina Harris, and I'm the CEO, Executive Director, and the Advocacy Strategist for the 501c3 nonprofit. And it is truly an honor to connect with individuals at some of the most difficult and critical points of their lives and navigate them through to safe places, wellness, wholeness, and just a peace-filled existence. I'm also the visionary behind the Cultural Pearls of Wisdom show. I do co-host that with Coretta Talbert. And the emphasis on that is positive psychology, holistic wellness approaches, mental health, and anything that has to do with living a life of substance. So we are eternally grateful for all of the things that God has allowed us to do inside of that. I want to take a moment to honor visionary Jacoby Waters, CEO, founder, and many other things inside of the Young Men of Distinction. And I want to give him an opportunity to share with this platform and the community as he desires before we go forward. But let's just give him a round of applause. Part 2 on an amazing, amazing vision that he ensured came to fruition. So Jacoby.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all these great men that I'm sitting around and sharing this platform with on this lovely evening. And this is also a special one, as I stated before, because I'm also sharing it with my father, Pastor Jamal Cameron. So for me, on a personal level, this is special to share it with my dad. And you know, I'm just eternally grateful for everybody being here safe and sound. And, you know, I hope everybody's ready for part 2.
Thank you, Jacoby. We want to go ahead and set ground rules and to make sure that all of the panelists are well versed on the expectations and how things are going to flow, and so that the virtual audience also to understand. I'm moderating this event, which means I'm guiding the conversation. I will also be empowering these men I will be taking away from their responses, and I will be pouring back into their life cups from how it's resonated and touched me, particularly as a woman. I will also be infusing quotes along the way, particularly those by Black men, or several of them are from men who have held prominent positions in our society, of different race and culture. And they just are very profound. And I would welcome those quotes and affirmations and different things that I present. The panelists are welcome to speak to them. I have asked Jacoby to establish a way that if someone within the virtual audience, even if it's putting information inside of, do we have the Facebook Live feed, Jacoby?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so you can type your questions, comments, or anything in that. We did go back and look, and there were multiple from the past. And we'll do our best, as Jacoby sends the information to me, I'll do my best to present it. But each panelist will get a question directed to them. It's up to them to present and expound as they desire based on experience, knowledge, combination of. They have 2 minutes to respond. After their response, they're going to end it by passing it back to me. So basically it's back to Sabrina. And I'm going to look amongst the panelists to see whoever who has physically raised their hand. And if they would like to expound, they can do so as well. And the 2 minutes will apply. Based on the generous wealth of information and everything that came out last time around, Jacoby and I have already established that this very well may go over an hour, and that everybody seemed to be okay with that. So without further ado, Jacoby, I'm going to start with you, but I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves briefly. Let's stick to the 2 minute or less protocol, but give to this virtual audience and to the community whatever you want them to know about yourself, your family, your profession, whatever you feel on your mind and heart. So Jacoby, what would you like to share? And I'll go from there.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jacoby Waters. I am the founder, CEO, and president of Young Men of Distinction. And we are mentoring young men from 2nd grade through the 12th grade. And our motto is helping to create generational wealth and empowerment. So if you have a young man out there that's interested, please contact me.
Thank you, Jacoby. Pastor Angus, would you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself, please?
Yes, I am Pastor Angus. I am a husband. I am a father. And I kind of did what Jacoby's doing now without even knowing that I was doing it. I was looking at the time at my church, and I just took on the responsibility of young men that didn't have father figures, and their parents entrusted me to go to the school, discipline them, talk to their teachers, everything. So, and I'm just glad somebody put it down and put it on paper and just working it out. I'm proud of this young man. I'm very proud of him.
Thank you. And thank you for being back for part 2. We welcome you.
Thank you for having me back.
Reverend Dr. Thicklin, welcome this evening. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Well, good evening. Thanks once again for having me back, Reverend Dr. J.R. Thicklin. I'm the founder and executive director of Destiny by Choice, where we're empowering lives and shaping destinies. I'm the current president of Palm Beach County Clergy Alliance. I am a very proud father and grandfather. I am the creator of the program called Destiny Changers, Building Boys to Men. That program was built from the saying of Frederick Douglass that it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And last but not least, I'm very glad to also have been the founder of Father's Lifelines, which is designed to help men, to empower them as we navigate through this thing called fatherhood. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you also for returning and being back for part 2. We greatly appreciate it. And Mr. Frankie Pierre Paul, please introduce yourself to us.
Amazing evening, everyone. My name is Frankie Pierre Paul, and I am the founder and CEO of A Different Shade of Love. And we cater to our homeless population here in Palm Beach County, preferably more Lake Worth, Florida, in Tent City. I am a proud father of two amazing, beautiful young children, 3, 1 years old. God has taken 3 from me, but I know he'll give them back. So I can say I'm a father of 5. And it's an honor and a privilege to be amongst such an amazing panel. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Waters for always, looking to me to be in the midst of greatness. So I appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We welcome you back also for part 2. And we look forward to what you bring to the table. So thank you all so far. Mr. Adrienne Carter, good evening. Introduce yourself to us, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adrienne Carter, and I'm excited again. Thank you, Jacoby, for having this panel. Again, gentlemen, it's great to see you all. Sabrina, it is always a pleasure. Truly, you are a queen. And I'm not one of those men who like to just call everybody a queen. I believe our sisters are queens too. I mean, I get all that, but I like to reserve it and make it special. Yes. So thank you, Sabrina. Again, you're an amazing host, and I'm glad to be back with you all. I'm a motivational keynote speaker, leadership development, and conflict resolution practitioner, and I'm excited about my book that was just published. So I could always share that information with you all later to get you more information. Thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome back for part 2, and I appreciate your sentiments. Queen has been bestowed and it has held, so I accept and I'm honored. Thank you. Mr. Donald Adams II, welcome. Please introduce yourself to us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Don Adams, and I'm a college grad. Among other things, I'm a father. I think all I wanted to ever be was a father. That was really my main thing. But I'm a father, husband, and I founded this organization, Finding Fathers Inc., to try to help out of the fatherless child situation that's going on in the world. I've been speaking with people from Ghana, Germany, Israel. There's people all over the place that are dealing with some of these same issues. So I founded this organization to try to help fight it. It's set up like a fraternal organization, so we need members. We'll be more than willing to accept y'all in, and we could definitely use your help.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
and
for
I
having
welcome you initially. This is your first time around, so welcome.
Thank you.
And from the Western community, super excited to have director, former mayor of Pahokee, the infamous Colin Vaux, well known all around town. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Harris. Good evening, everyone. As Ms. Harris stated, my name is Colin Vaux. I'm the director for Bridges here at Belglade. I'm former mayor of the city of Pahokee, a proud father, son of God, just a community activist. I just love to serve. I was very honored when Jacoby reached out and asked me to be a part of the panel. I love talking about children. I love my children. And I love all children. I love talking about children. So I'm just excited to be here to be a part of the conversation, talking the love language, of a father. Thank you all so very much for having me.
Thank you for being here and for representing Belglade, Pahokee, and South Bay. We send our love and we embrace you all, and we thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and we now go to coach, assistant principal, the financial guru, man of many hats. We welcome Richard Brown to the table, to the platform. Please introduce yourself, Richard.
Thank you so much. I want to give it back to Ms. Harris and Mr. Waters for putting on this function. I appreciate everything that you all are doing for our community. I kind of got caught up like Pastor Angus. I'm a father and a husband, but I'm a father of 2 daughters. And God blessed me with daughters for a specific reason, and I don't want to share right now. But he also put me in place to be a blessing to young men throughout the school system. And Mr. Waters came to me a few months ago to my school and reminded me that I was a person who mentored him when he was in high school. So it goes to show you that you just never know who's watching you, and you need to be mindful of what it is you say and do and how you behave around these children, because they will never forget you and how you make them feel. Once again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you and welcome. And Pastor Cameron, I particularly saved you, and it's not for last. They say definitely sometimes the best is definitely saved for last. But Jacoby has referenced you in such a fond way. I really am very intrigued to know more about you. So please introduce us.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Damone Cameron. I'm the founder and pastor of Greater Life Fellowship Ministries, and I am Jacoby's father. Thank you guys for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight, sitting on this panel with you all. I don't take this lightly at all. I always wondered why God chose me, and now I know, because he just reminded me today that there was a reason that he would have me to be here. And listening at you all, now I know, because there was something that he had placed in my heart. And you all have touched on many of the things that he had placed in my heart. He had given me a vision for, and now I know that he was connecting me with people of greatness. And I consider you all greatness. So thank you all for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm a husband and a father. I have 2 daughters and Jacoby, my son. It's an honor. I love them, and I just love giving wisdom to children. So thank you guys for having me tonight.
Welcome, and thank you so much. I just thought the dialogue between you two was so impressed upon my heart. Is very beautiful, because I hear many young men reference their fathers in a negative way, or they don't reference them at all. So I thought it was very beautiful the way he honored you, and you articulated yourself very well. So
thank you.
All right, so we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, and most of you know me now, very direct. Some of the questions are really going to force you to think outside the box. I'm going to infuse my therapeutic background interchangeably here and there. I'm also going to throw out quotes. For the sake of time, I'm not going to really expound on them, but if anything resonates with you, once again, and you have something that you want to add to it, you're more than welcome to do so. So my first question is for Reverend Thicklin, and I'm positioning this to you because of your background, growing up in Selma, Alabama, the things that you witnessed, the things that you experienced. And my question to you is, what does it mean to you to be a Black man in America in this time?
What does it mean to me to be a Black man in America at this time? It means that my prophetic destiny has come into full circle with the purpose in which I was born. I was born at a time in which I'm able to bridge the old to the present, the old guard to the new guard. It is the culmination of my life now, recognizing that I was not only called to be a father, but actually a patriarch to many, meaning that not just my own biological children, but men, women, boys, and girls from all over that we are able to lend our wisdom to, our experience to, and to be able to continue to pave the way while raising the bar that those that come behind us will also do the same. It is about making not only our legacy real, the reality of the promise of justice, the promise of freedom, the promise of equal rights under the law to become a reality. It means the fact that we are finally coming into that place where we're taking our rightful place in society.
I say that all the time, take your rightful place. And it's very interesting that many people will in turn ask me, how do I know what my rightful place is? So I would like one of the other panelists to expound on that. If you're guiding a young man who's standing before you asking, how does he assume his rightful place in today's society? What words of wisdom will you give him? And Donald, I saw your hand, Mr. Adams.
Yes, I want to expound on what it means to be a Black man in America at this time. And I think a lot of the generations have experienced some of the same curses to a degree. So right now, what it means for a Black man in America at this time, we need to be honest with our children about what is taking place in the Black community. It's happening all over the world in just about everyone's community. I think it's bigger than race, but we need to be honest about brutalities that we've gone through. I mean, of course, we all want to look to law enforcement as, protection, but as a Black man, I have to protect. I have to protect my family, my children, wife, and I have to tell them the truth. I have to be honest with them about what's going on in this climate. There's a difference between racism and oppression. And as a Black man, I want to tell my kids the truth about this situation, especially right now. It's good that, there's people that are giving the Black man a lot of publicity at the time. But as a Black man in America right now, I feel there's a need to be as honest with our children as possible about what is going on, what is taking place, and what needs to take place going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. Very profound wisdom inside of it. And Mr. Pierre Paul, I want to ask you, because you have, and I'm doing this specifically because you have so much contact with young people. I want to go back to taking your rightful place, because that's very important. Because if we're trying to position, especially Black male youth and Black men in today's society by this discussion in their right place, how do we help them understand how they assume that or what it is? How would you answer that question?
So, being 30 years old and probably being the youngest in the pack right now, I'm now figuring out what it means to be in position, right? And being able to understand that I'm in position right now is the fact that seasoned individuals around me are saying, Frank, this is your time to actually speak to those behind you. What got me to this point is actually sitting back, right? And actually letting God take control. I've always felt like this is the time where I gotta show everyone that I'm ready. I gotta show everyone that this is my time. I gotta do it. But when I fall short, that's when I go into my depression mode. That's when I go into my identity mode. Like I don't get who I am. I don't understand who I am. So my message to the young individual is that you got to get to know yourself, right? Get to know yourself, get to know who you are, get to know what you are, and get to know what you love. You understand? So at the end of the day, we all have this big world where, we have social media playing a big role into our lives right now. And the young generation sometimes allow social media to dictate their future. And my main message to the young folks is that you got to get to know yourself. If you don't get to know yourself, sometimes you get to lose yourself. And when you lose yourself, it's very difficult to find yourself, because you have to go through barriers. You have to go through these trials and tribulations. You have to go through these detours. And if you don't have the right foundation or the right people around you, you can get lost to the point where you're lost and you never can find yourself again. So you have to get to know yourself, and you have to get to know your purpose, and you will always have to stay grounded in your foundation.
Excellent answer. And I would also add a caveat to that. As far as getting into position, knowing your strengths is essential. Also knowing what you're not very good at. It's almost as if you're applying for a position. Some people send out resumes randomly. They just want a job. They just see the money attached to it and everything else. And my conversation is always, are you qualified for the position? Are you called for the position? Have you trained to assume the position? And are you ready to be in this position, especially if it's a position of leadership? So understand yourself. Spend time with God and know for a fact that He has called you, especially in the community and the society where the call to task and duty is very great. And prepare yourself to be in position and then assume position. So thank you all very much. Excellent. One of the things that is very strong inside of the therapeutic community is the concept of human resilience. I just did a lot of research on it. There is a debate whether resilience is innate, meaning you acquired it at birth, you were born with it, or is it something that you have assumed over time? It has come to rest where I feel it is something you're born with. However, you develop it through the experiences and different things that you overcome and challenges and everything else. So one of the audience members wanted us to emphasize resilience as a part of the defining process for our young men of today. So I'm going to open this up to any panel because she's mentioned resilience before and she believes that it's very important, especially Director Walks for the Western community. So I'm going to lead in with you to address human resilience, and anyone else who desires to can chime in.
Thank you so very much for the question. Resilience is definitely, I do believe, and everything you just said, I do believe it's innate as well as learned as you progress through life. Of course, with it being innate, it's coming from your spiritual being, your being, your holy trinity, so to speak, your mind, body, and soul, pulling those three into line and actually self-actualizing. Once again, learning oneself. When you learn oneself, your natural innate resilience will come forward when you're faced with a lot of challenges in life. So it's very important that individuals take time for themselves. I think the thing that you'll hear that I'm hearing already being developed is self-care. Self-care in this world is vitally important at this time. You have to make sure we're taking care of ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically. Once we pull those things into line, it can then afford us the opportunity to handle whatever may come our way or whatever we may dream to be or become. Once we pull those in line, it will then open up the world, so to speak, to you. That light bulb will go off in your head. You know, those aha moments will start happening for you. So I encourage individuals to take time for yourself on a daily basis. When myself as a father, I have 4 children, 3 living at home with me, 1 on his own. I still take time for myself. You know, our kids can soak up a lot of your time, and I give them time for themselves. I encourage them to sit and be with themselves, to self-meditate, to try to question yourself. And when you cannot find the answer, that's when, you know, dad and mom, we're here then to help provide some guidance. You know, so once again, working on that holy trinity, mind, body, and soul, reaching self-actualization helps to bring forward resilience.
Excellent response. And I know Reverend Thicklin speaks about the triune being often. So Pastor, I know you have something you want to add to that.
Well, I tell you, Colin, you did a great job in talking about that. And that is really where we come into this oneness, is when we understand the interconnectedness. And I would like to say the inextricably relationship between mind, body, and spirit. Because at the end of the day, until those things are aligned with each other, you're like a car with a bad oil leak. Something is leaking. You're not at your full potential. You're not able to give your full self inside of it. And so for some of us as men, we learned that lesson earlier than others. Many times when we just focus what we'll have, we'll burn out. And after the experience of having hit the wall, we recognize, man, I had good intentions. I had great desire, but I didn't find balance in my life. And so guess what? The people that you're meant to impact, you still end up being absent from, because now I've got to take time to repair myself or to be made whole again. So it's important. Fatherhood is an amazing thing. You know, it's not a matter of I turned 21, now I could be a father. It is a mental, it's a spiritual, it's a journey inside of understanding fatherhood. And if most of us would be true with ourselves, man, it's always a learning process. We're still learning.
Absolutely. I love what you said. And what resonated inside of me about human resilience is God gave us a portion, but he also allowed us to build upon that portion.
Absolutely.
So we don't have to just rest with what we were born with, and we can build upon that, which I think is so very beautiful. Mr. Carter, I saw you raise your hand.
I did. I was thinking about the question, and I'm happy with the responses that we're hearing, because I think it's a very tough question.
Yes.
When you dealing with this thing of resilience. And I was thinking about even just from my process. You know, Frankie mentioned how he might be the youngest of the group. I turned 40 this year, so I'm wondering, how did I make it this far, right? And I realized my motto for this year was, "But did you die?" Because I finally came to a point where I was like, I ain't die. I went through this. I'm still here. I went through that.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm like, and sorry, but did you die though? Oh, okay. It ain't that bad. I ain't die. So, but I realized it took me a while to get here though, right? It took a while to get here. One of the things that I think that has helped me get here is learning how to resolve conflicts. The conflict resolution process, I think, is imperative in the conversation about resilience. Your resilience is a major component of that will be your ability to resolve problems. Can you resolve it effectively? Can you resolve it and maintain relationships? Can you resolve it and maintain your integrity? I think those are the things that really helps people to align themselves over the long run. At least that's one of the contributing factors of it.
And I'm going to co-sign that from a therapeutic perspective, because I've often said that life skills should be a curriculum in the school setting. And of course, conflict resolution should be one of them, emotional intelligence, critical thinking, all of these things that allow us to more effectively navigate life. So I'm a strong advocate of that, especially as changes are being made. And Assistant Principal Brown, I would love your take on that, because I know you understand curriculum and everything that can and cannot happen. But are we preaching to the choir? Is this something that is really doable?
Yes, it's very doable. In fact, we had it when I was growing up.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that should be in the system now that just disappeared. Something as simple as home economics.
Absolutely.
Which tapped on a little bit of financial literacy. It tapped on conflict resolution. It tapped on being able to self-support yourself in different areas. Something as simple as if I'm getting ready to go to church and I pop my button and I need to get my button on. I know how to sew a button from JFK, learning how to stitch a button. I mean, does that say anything about my masculinity? Absolutely not, because it's something simple. Can I sew a dress? No, I can't do that, but I can do a button. I can cook. I learned how to cook, from home, but also in home economics. But there are a lot of things that can be taught in our system, and I really don't know if I should say this on Facebook Live, but I think it's being held back for a certain reason. I don't want to say what I believe that reason is, but things have changed for the worse because of what has been held back from our students. And I'm going to leave it right there because I'm in a certain position.
But what you did was gave me hope. You gave me hope that packaged together correctly and pushed through the mediums that are necessary, this could be a reality. Because I too, home economics, shop, horticulture, learned gardening, all of these different things, it helps to well-round you as an individual. And it also helps you to realize what are you really interested in? You're formulating careers here. Maybe you're going to be a chef or different things of that nature. But if you never have an opportunity to experience these things, especially if your home environment does not dictate that, it's a loss. When they say win-win, I'm saying it's a loss all the way across the board. Any other panelists want to touch on that subject? Yes. I'll go to Mr. Adams and then Director Wall.
On the subject of resiliency and what we should be telling our kids, like I'm thinking again, if we're telling our children the truth about the situations, those things, they're born with this power. A lot of what's been created in the world has been created through God. So it's in us. It's in us to have the resiliency to fight through and overcome and not give up. But let's tell our children what the game is that they're playing before we say, yeah, go out there and win this race and everyone's playing fair. You've got to tell your kids, hey, it's harder on you because of this and because of that. So you can't give up. You can't just give in. You know, I take care of 2 disabled children, and one of them has severe cerebral palsy and needs my attention every day. So I give him that, you know, regularly. And there is no giving up. You have to have this resiliency. Not only am I born with it, he gives me that strength to continue on for him, but I'm giving him strength also. And we're both strengthening each other and learning how to be more resilient. But if we telling our kids, you know, don't give up, fight back, fight harder, find other ways, you know, think outside the box. Our children will see the resiliency in us and they will imitate.
Absolutely. Role modeling. I strongly believe in that. And that's why I've made so many statements on social media here recently. Especially if you voluntarily subscribe to a leadership position, there's a level of ownership inside of it. But as a Black man raising children, the sense of responsibility is already there. You cannot shy away from it wisely, especially if you want to be respected. Because one of the complaints that I get from young people the most is the mixed messaging. They're confused. They don't understand. They don't buy into it, and the trust is waning. So I would love for Pastor Angus and Pastor Cameron to speak to role modeling and why is it so important in today's time as a father.
Go ahead, Pastor Cameron.
Well, I think it's important to be a good role model because our young men, our children, they're looking for someone to give them a blueprint. And I think as a father, they look to us as that blueprint. They want something that they can model themselves after, pattern themselves after, to get to that place of just being a good dad. Some of them, they just want to be a good father. They want to know how to be a good parent. And I think it starts with us as dads setting that example. And the thing with me that I love being a dad. I don't know. It's sometimes I look and I wonder if I'm just different. You know what I mean? Because some people run from it, but I love it. It's a passion of mine to be a great father, to be an example. And that's all I know is to be a good dad. So it is important that I set that blueprint for my children at any cost, no matter what it is, to be that example, that blueprint for them that they can follow. And I have to be honest with them. I tell them I'm very old-fashioned. I'm very old-fashioned. There's one thing that I believe in, and I believe in doing it right. And sometimes they look at me and they say, well, Dad, you got to go with the times. No, I can't go with the times. I got to do it God's way. Wow. Because I'm going to be held responsible. And I have my grandchildren that's looking. So I have to be that blueprint. So it is very important that I be that role model that they must follow, no matter what the world says or what anybody else say, but I have to do it right. So I think it is very important.
Very good answer. And I'm going to say, wait, Pastor Angus, hold on for a moment. Jacoby, tell us about the blueprint, because you were able to experience it firsthand. Tell us about the blueprint that he's emphasizing.
So the blueprint, and before I get into with the blueprint, I would like to say thank you to him, because he took my mother and myself prior to us meeting him. And when he came into my life, it was just my grandfather that I had as a father figure. And when my dad came along, I accepted him with open arms as well as he accepted me. So I was always watching him as I can always tell everybody, I never seen my parents argue. Even if they did, I would never know. My dad always was the one we could easily go to and talk to. My dad was always the reserve, the calm one. And you knew, by him being just so reserved and so calm, he's always into God. I joke, Now, my mother was the R&B. My dad, I learned Fred Hammond. So it was, I learned, I can truly say being in the church, my dad really had us in the church, in which now that I am, and Frankie, don't feel bad, I'm the second youngest, I'm 31. So me being 31, and now I have sons as well, you know, he taught me a lot, being able to accept, you know, because I have 3 sons and 2 of them are not biologically mine, but learning from my dad, he taught me how to love everybody. So it makes it so much easier for me to love all my sons as well as the young men that's in the group as my sons, because I learned from my dad what it truly means to love another human.
Amazing. And Pastor Cameron, that should make you feel really good, especially stepping in and accepting responsibility in that manner and to have it played out so effectively and so very well. So we honor you for that this evening. And Pastor Angus, I know you have a wealth to contribute here, but let's emphasize role modeling. And inside of it, I'm wanting to know, do Black men feel you need to be perfect? And if you are not perfect, have you failed?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because we do have to be transparent. And I struck up a relationship with a man named Emmanuel Bellamy. We just buried him about 2 months ago. He was 90 years old. And he worked for Cater's Furniture for 40, I don't want to get this wrong, I think it was 47 years as a delivery guy. And he raised his family over on 3rd and 3rd Street off of Australia in Riviera Beach. And he took me as a son. He would call me in the morning when I was at work, and he was, hey, I haven't heard from you in a few weeks. When you coming by? And I said, as soon as I get off work, I'm coming by. I'm coming by to see. He said, you know you're my son, right? I said, yes, I know I'm your son. But he would sit and talk to me about, not about the accomplishments he had in life, but about the mistakes that he made along the way also. And a lot of times we don't tell the mistakes. And my daughters got to see it firsthand, because they got to see me come home as a mistake, coming home from prison, trying to put my life back together and be a father at the same time. And sending them, all 3 of them went to UCF. I was a UCF dad also, 2008, 9, and 10. But they got to see their father get it together and talk to them about, okay, if you do fall, you can't stay down. You got to get back up. You made a mistake. And I point them to God. I give you my worldly wisdom, but I say, you need to have a conversation with God about it. Whatever it is, talk to me. I'm going to give you the wisdom I have. Okay, now you need to go talk to God, because that's the outlet. And he'll give you the rest of the direction. But us as Black men, we tend to shy away when we're not perfect, or when we do get it wrong, or when we don't have enough money, or when we, and I didn't have any money. So only thing I could send my daughters while I was incarcerated were letters. I love you, birthday cards, things of that nature. But I did the best I could with what I had. And that's, as a Black man, we have to do that. Do the best you can with what you have.
And I thank you for being well-intentioned, for coming home and committing to doing the right thing. And I think it's important to send out into the highway today that there is no perfection on this earth. We can strive to be the best that we could possibly be, but I mean, if you're in the perfect realm, you're in the godly realm and the divine realm, and we are not ever going to accomplish that on this earth. But to be transparent, and I'm saying this as a therapist with young people who sit with me and divulge all kind of different things that they're seeing and hearing, I have to tell you, these young people know. Even they sense things when things are going in the home and things are not just right, they sense it. And the one thing they will forever charge and hold against you is when you were not honest, or when you chose to be dishonest. They don't need all of the bells and whistles, but they need to have a sense of understanding, and they want to hear that from you. It makes it different. It really does. So is there anyone else who wants to contribute to that? Because that was amazing dialogue, very rich.
I would like to expound upon that, the honesty of life. As a father, as a Black father, I see myself in constant recreation or correction of myself. I'm not a perfect person, you know, and I stress that to my children, you know, and I take them through the process of correction. You know, when things happen in the home, you know, I make sure that they're part of it. You know, if we go through a repossession, they knew about the repossession of the car. We go through a foreclosure in the home. They knew about the foreclosure in the home. It was just making sure that I share that, because it's their life as well. You know, being the parent, we tend to say we tend to think it's all mine. It's all mine. No, it's not all ours. We're sharing this life with another being. They're our children, and we have to be open and honest with them so that they will know when they run across being imperfect, how they can move forward through correction. And I find it very, it comes easy to me now as a seasoned dad, should I say. I'm 47 years old with my first child. I mean, I think I was a terrible dad. I'm just being honest. I was like, oh my goodness. When I think back upon some of the abuse, I would say it was abuse. Now that I'm older and have my other children, it was like I went through so many mistakes with my older son. It's like unbelievable, you know, that we made it this far. As a young dad, very young, you know, 19 years of age, you know, and not knowing how to correct myself, not knowing, but I had two dads. I was blessed to have two dads, my biological and my stepdad, both great men, and I had access to them all the time. But for some reason, I tried to figure out things on my own, you know, but these men, they were there for me. They constantly told me, my stepdad constantly, I'm here for you, Colin. You know, anytime, anywhere. I mean, the man was always there. My biological dad as well, always there. But for some reason, I just wanted to figure it out myself, you know, and I bumped my head a lot. And I try to encourage my children not to go down that road that I went down, because it did damage my relationship with my oldest son. We're still repairing that to this day. You know, thank God he's a sweet boy. You know, he's a sweet young man. You know, I thank God for him, you know, because he has a heart of gold, and he has forgiven me for a lot of the atrocities I portrayed upon him. You know, so he helped me to grow as a man. You know, the way he treats people, he taught me how to treat myself, to project that on to other people. So I appreciate my children. They teach me a lot. I'm still learning, 47 years of age, been through a lot with my kids, you know, but it's that healing process, that correction process that we must share with our children. I wanted to make that clear.
You know,
absolutely, and a great sense of responsibility. And I think the message resonates that anytime we get it wrong, we can always come back and get it right. I think that's what a lot of people miss. There's always a period of atonement. There's always a way for you to purge and do things better. So just because I misstepped here doesn't mean that I can't turn the corner and elevate the next time around. I need to learn the lesson. I'll say it again. I need to learn the lesson, because inside of each misstep, there's most certainly at least one, but usually several lessons to be learned. And I know Frankie and Coach both had comments. So Frankie and then Coach Richard.
So I just want to piggyback on our brother Donald when he mentioned that to be honest and be open with your children. What I'm realizing right now in this generation, and I thank God for allowing me to be in the midst of that, a lot of our young men are lacking fathers, right? So we can all sit here and say we had great fathers, man. We, you know, or we learned and we get it. But this generation, I could talk to a young man and say, bro, let me talk to you real quick. Like my dad, I grew up in church. Like I get what you're saying, but he's like, Frankie, you don't get what I'm saying, because at the end of the day, you had a dad. Regardless if your dad was all about church, you had somebody to wake up to and say, that's my dad. Regardless if you've been bad in school, they call your parents, they calling your dad. Your dad is coming to whoop you, your dad's coming to reprimand you, or your dad's coming to praise you. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I feel like it's vital. And I know all of us men here on this panel have dealt with a young man that said, man, I just don't get it. Right? I just don't understand why my dad was never there. I just don't understand why my dad just left. Like, I don't understand why my mom is bashing my dad. It's so many things that I hear, and I'm like, bro, like, you're right. I don't understand it either. But at the end of the day, like, you're here. You know, Mr. I think it was Mr. Angus, or let me get this name right. Mr. Carter. He said he's still alive. Brother, you still alive. At the end of the day, you still alive. So the fact that you're still here, you still have purpose, you still have life. So I just want to encourage all of us on this panel to understand that, yes, the generation is different, but you guys hold the torch as well, where it comes to when you guys speak to a young man like me, Frankie, and say, Frank, man, like, you're doing good. My dad don't really understand what that means, really. Like, he'll call me and say, Frank, I'm proud of you. But my dad is a Haitian American from Haiti, right? Where his main thought was grind, 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 so your kids can have a good life. You know what I mean? Grind, 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 so your kids can get a diploma. Okay, Dad, what happens after that? What happens? How do I change a tire? Dad, how do I treat a woman? Like, if my wife is not, if I feel like my wife is not treating me the way I should be treated, should I talk to her about it, or should I go out to the club and drink a beer or drink some liquor? I don't know how to do it, Dad. And my dad would sit back and say, Frank, man, just go to God and talk to God. What if I don't understand what God is? You know what I mean? Like, I'm still young in this, Dad. Like, what does that feel like? You know, so I just wanted to put that out there and to be very transparent when it comes to young men like me and young men behind me, right? We can scream out, God is omnipotent. Like, God is the provider. And sometimes our churches fail to explain to us this God that we're speaking of. And I thank God that I have that relationship with him. And I thank God for men like you guys that I'm able to have that perspective. But sometimes they don't get it. So, Mr. Donald, I just want to thank you again, man, for saying that, being open and being real to our kids and being honest with them is another aspect to making our young men be greater men at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I believe, hey, I appreciate it, you know, but if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't have said it. I'll tell you that now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I wanted to actually say something, since now I'm saying it. I don't really feel the need to be perfect. And I've told this to my children before also, but I do feel the need to try to be the number one, number two, or number three. And the way I brought it to my children was, you know, when they're in the teenage years, they look towards wanting to date. And I say, now, are you looking to, you know, date someone who is the number one, number two, or number three eligible, you know, bachelorette or bachelor? You got to be trying to be the best. Although you're not going to be perfect, you know, even some of the social skills that kids learn growing up, like being a good sport or a good loser, you know, disagreeing politely and respectfully, compromising. A lot of things we go through in life has that challenge where you may fail. If you do, you show that resiliency and you get right back up and you keep at it. So it's, for a Black man, it's not important to be perfect, because I'm not, but I'm going to try to be the best I can be. I'm going to try to be number one. And I'm going to teach that to my kids too. I want you to be the number one, number two, or the number three, at least in the top 10. You got to be something good though. But yeah, go ahead, I turn it over. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Coach Brown, but Frankie, I want to definitely address your comment about communication with your wife, because I want to emphasize that females are very emotional. And if nothing else, for you allowing us to vent and really get out how we feel, for you to listen in a non-judgmental state and just really hear us, kind of give back what we said and just take ownership if that be the case of any misstep or whatever inside of it. But for a woman to be heard is hugely significant. So please listen to her, even when you don't feel like listening to her. Just show up and be present and allow her to feel like you're connected with her and you really care about her. I want to make sure and leave that with you. Coach Brown.
Thank you. Just wanted to talk about a story, a real brief one, probably about 15 years ago. I was working at Gardens High School at the time, and I ran across a young man that was just doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. And I said, "Hey man, why are you doing that?" And he said, "You know what, coach?" And he thought I was older than what I was, but he said, "Man, when y'all were growing up, y'all had Martin Luther King and Malcolm X." I was like, "Okay." He said, "But who do we have?" He said, "My dad ain't around." I said, "You know what? I'm gonna work on that." And I said that to say this: we all have opportunities to be that role model. We just got to be careful that we don't pass it by. There are a lot of times that a kid will come our way, and it's a great opportunity for us to step in. And I'm gonna tell you what I did with that kid, and actually my entire class. One of my teachers during the lunch break said she had a flat tire and she didn't know what to do. What I did, I took my entire class out. Wasn't about 8 kids, but I took them out, and it was all boys, and I showed them how to change a tire. And it may not seem like a lot, but believe it or not, only 2 out of the 8 knew how to do it. So I actually had them help and show and teach the other boys how to do it, because a lot of times peer-to-peer education is more powerful. So if I didn't do anything else, I helped a kid learn a skill that he's going to use at some point in his life. Plus, I filled in a void that he didn't have in his life. So it's always opportunities. If you work with boys, young ladies as well, but if you work with boys, there's always going to be an opportunity for you to be that role model. So all I'm saying, I say that to say this: be aware and be conscious that they're always reaching out, and they're always watching.
Wow, that's very powerful. I love stories because it helps us connect and bring things together. And I like that what you said was so on point for the peer-to-peer. A lot of times when youth don't really take messages from us as adults, they will certainly take them from each other. So I think that's very critical what you said. Mr. Carter, I know you're going to have to leave us. So I wanted to direct this question rather to you first and get your insight on it. And then we'll go from there across the panel. But I want, from your perspective, do you believe that the Black men who are diligently trying to do it right, do you feel that you're respected individually for what you're trying to do, or that people just assume about the Black male across the board and you are never able to garner the respect that you feel you deserve?
You and these tough questions. It's interesting. That's an interesting question. But my personal experience is I'm a father of 3. My personal experience is I've not been one who's always felt that the most respected in my role. I think there has been times this expectation that is not as appreciated, but that's more so my personal perspective. But what I can say though, and in regards to my book, which I talk to a lot of men in developing my book, is that I know that there is a population of men who don't feel as if their role, the fact that there are men who sew, they cook, they clean, they're just as domestic in a lot of the things that they do. But this narrative of what a man is supposed to be overlooks how men really are, right? Because I believe that there are more good fathers than there are fathers who are not. And when I hear about these men, and now look, I know that there are men who are just failing women out there. So there are men who are very immature and very irresponsible. But I also do believe, though, that the story about those men tend to override the story of men who are mature and responsible and going above and beyond the duty as fathers. And when I hear about those stories of men who are being irresponsible and immature, a lot of times I'm like, who are these men? I don't know them. I've heard of stories of them. I heard one time, there's a name or two I could say, but as far as them being the men who I even have conversations with, they're not. So I would say that, and depending on what our personal experiences are, you can definitely, it could run the gamut. But ultimately, I think the narrative of good fathers, because even remember, like we talked about last week, one of the things that happen is that this narrative of absent fathers predominates the conversation when in fact they're more present fathers, So so the good fathers kind of get lost in the shuffle, I think.
I was saying, you're being very kind. I feel like you're really, by societal standards, being shortchanged. I really do. Because so many are stepping up and trying their best to do, but there is this misplaced preconception and all of these different things of what a Black man is and how he conducts himself and who he is. And it overshadows and overpowers the amazing stuff that is being done.
Yeah. And let me just say, add this, unfortunately, gentlemen, I have another engagement that I'm running to, but I wanted to say this last week. I have an amazing father. I just want to quickly be able to share that. In when I was, it may have been in about 92 when Hurricane Andrew came through, or there was some hurricane. I remember I went outside, the lights were off and we slept over, we slept through the hurricane, and I got up the next morning and I came outside and I had my pajamas on. My dad, he picked me up, he held me up in the air. It was a whole Mufasa Lion King Simba moment. I promise you I couldn't make it. He held me up and he looked at me, and for a moment I was looking at him in his eyes as he was holding me up. And I promise you all, there was so much love for me in that man's eyes that from that point, I knew I wanted to be a father. And I didn't want to have children before getting married and all of that, but I knew that I'm going to be a father one day, because this thing is that connection, that eye to eye, and the amount of love that I saw in that man for me, it's phenomenal. I knew I had to do that one day. And so I've been blessed to have had a good father. My father did not have his father in his life. And I know that's part of his motivation in being a good father. So I just want to publicly share how I appreciate my good father for being a good father.
That's very beautiful. I'm going to give you an opportunity before you go to plug. You have 2 books, so I'm just going to make sure you plug your work. But I also want to say therapeutically, that is absolutely on point. That typically what an individual is tasked with that was negative or what they missed, they try their best to overcompensate on the other side in life. So that is very true. What I did not have, the void that was represented in my life, I want to do my best to navigate around it, or I want to do my best to not exemplify the negativity side of it. So excellent point. So please guide us to your works and tell us how we can support you, Adrienne.
I appreciate it. I just published my book. The title of the book is Let's Get Married and Do Everything Except Make It Last. And I know that's a mouthful of a title, but when you look at the cover, it's really 2 titles in one. The subtitle is It's a Heart to Heart with Men on Loving and Leading. So it really is a book about leadership development and conflict resolution, but it uses my marriage and some of my personal experiences and my divorce as a ground, as a foundation to build into deconstructing a lot of the issues that us men face, a lot of the conversations that are not had about the role and responsibility that we have in society that overlooks the amount of pressure that we're really under and how we are not allowed to operate in certain spaces and be who we are as men. So it's a lot is said in the book, but you can definitely, I will go ahead and leave it in the chat. You can head out to my website or to my Facebook, but everything I use is Adrienne Carter Speaks. And I encourage you to grab a copy of the book. My first book is a leadership development book. But when you really look at it, though, my first book about leadership development and conflict resolution is still the second book about leadership development and conflict resolution, but it's in the space of dealing with love, marriage, and relationships. So
I was going to say that's certainly your signature, conflict resolution. So, Coach, when you're developing that curriculum, you definitely want to talk to Adrienne. That's a shameless plug.
All right, I appreciate that. So thank you. I'm going to put my information in the chat. Unmute
yourself.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening and God bless you. Thank you. Yes, Coach, did you want to say something?
I was actually just waving by to Adrienne, but I do, I really enjoyed what he said about his father's connection. My mom and dad got a divorce when I was 2 or 3, and I still love my dad. Don't get me wrong. That's my dad. And what I found is that a lot of kids that I speak with at the school have a frustration and an anger toward their father who's not in the house. I've had situations to where the kid and his siblings and his mom live in this house, and the dad and his new family live 3 streets over, and he has no contact with them. So it builds a frustration and an anger, and I can understand that. But what I preach to them is, when you decide to have a family, just like Adrienne said, what kind of a dad do you want to be? And that is what should drive our conversations with the kids who have those struggles, those issues. Be sure that you don't treat your children the way you were treated. Treat them how you want to be treated, okay? Or how you would have wanted to be treated as a child. And that was powerful what Adrienne said.
Absolutely, right the wrongs. Pastor Thicklin?
First of all, I want to say Adrienne's gone, but I purchased his book yesterday, and of course I have his first book inside of that, and that's good to have. Tonight's theme have come a lot around the fact of not only resiliency, us as men feeling that we have to be perfect or not. And this is what I'm going to say from a man who to the world have accomplished a lot, and everybody see the window dressing, but they don't know the story. There are 5 kids particularly that knows the story. And so inside of that was the ability to be transparent, the ability to be transparent without making an excuse for what you've done. See, I do believe that all of us are on this continuum of learning. When I was a young father, I became a father at 22 years old. I didn't know a cotton picking thing. No, I did. I was excited to become a father, but just as excited as I was also scared. Sure. I didn't know. So being a man of faith at the time, this is what happened. I resolved the fact that God must have knew something about me that I did not know about myself to entrust me to be a father. That was the premise of what guided me. Now I'm going to be transparent for just 1 second, since we like story. My mother and father was married their entire life, my whole lifetime. They was not product of divorce. I didn't live that life at all. And yet and still, my 5 children are by 2 different marriages. But this is what I did. I was so embarrassed that I wouldn't tell my dad, he still lived in Alabama, that I was divorced. I would talk to mom, but didn't want dad to know, because I did not want to disappoint him inside of this. And mom be on the phone, said, that's how dad is doing. Oh, he right here, he on the phone, Johnny. I'm like, please don't give him the phone, because he's gonna ask me how's the family. And when I finally told him, he did not react the way I thought he would. It troubled me that I was gonna break his legacy and his tradition. So how could I make up for it? And I looked at the one thing, that I knew that he loved us and he loved his children. So I pledged from that moment on that I was gonna love my kids, that my kids will never be divorced, although they was children who experienced divorce inside of it. As a result, I can tell you, I was an intricate part of raising my children together. My daughter is on right now. I just looked at it. My only princess. She's on right now. And what am I happy about? I can honestly tell you, this girl has no recollection of her mother and I ever living in the same house. But you will not find no closer relationship than ours inside of who we are. Why? The ability to see me make mistakes and me not make the excuses for the mistake. Because think about it. Perfection is a road of maturity. No one is born perfected. It is through what we go through that makes us who we are. It was to Dr. King that said, the measure of a man is not measured in the midst of his comfortability and convenience, but rather his challenges and those things. Man, life is a challenge. And I can say this to you, that same little boy that was born when I was 22 years old, he just had his first child. The last time we did that, I was in Cleveland celebrating him becoming a father, his first Father's Day. Now being a grandfather, you know what they tell me? And I'm gonna say this and I'm done. See, what I discovered, brothers, is that your children will give you your report card in time. Wow. They will give you your report card in time. And when I'm with them and they talk, they convince me, they tell me all the time, Dad, trust what you taught us. Trust what you taught us. We are who we are because of what you taught us. You've given us large shoes to fill. And I'm saying to myself, really? I said, Dad, my oldest son said, now I get a chance to try to walk in your shoes. What was I reflecting on? I was reflecting on everything I thought was bad moves and mistakes. What was they reflecting on? The authenticity of who we are. I say to every man, we're not professors of dadhood, of fatherhood. We're a work in progress. Continue to be a part of that work, love your kids, embrace them, communicate with them. And I promise you the return will be great. I'm like you, brother. Ain't nothing like being a dad. That's my highest achievement. I'm telling you right now, I go through grandchildren withdrawals. That's how much I love it. Mm-hmm.
Very powerful, Pastor Thicklin. And I want to say as a woman, what I drew from that is you along the way learned that you did not have to be your father. You along the way learned that it was just fine for you to be J.R. Thicklin. And that was good enough. And for you to divine your life and create your life just so. And I think you have done a tremendous job, even watching the accolades and the different things that they're achieving, to pass that on to your children, that I now bestow upon you the right to be who you are. Absolutely. And even though I have broad shoes to fill, you don't necessarily have to fill them in a particular way. You do what is best for you and just honor the substance that I've given you. So I think that's a tremendous message.
Thank you.
So I'm going to shift you all into a direction, and I'm monitoring time. We're almost 15 minutes to close at this point. But this is a quote by rapper, songwriter, producer Kendrick Lamar. And this really, really stuck with me. And I want each of you to give your perspective on what this means to you. But he said, as a Black man, I always thought it was me against the world. He said, but one day, like a miracle, I finally realized that was me against me. So, Jacoby, I'm gonna start with you. What does that mean to you?
What that means to me is, like I tell my young men as well as my sons, that I am my own worst enemy when it comes to striving for perfection. So when somebody else, they give me kudos, they give me praise, I'm more hard on myself, like what can I do to be great? So when I hear that comment, that I understand that fully, because I always felt like it was me battling against myself. Because everybody else, I can disregard it, but it was more of me battling with me to strive for that perfection. In actuality, I'm learning now that me being who I am, that's what makes me perfect in my own way, because I'm accepting being me, and which I wouldn't trade for nothing.
So I think that's an amazing response, and it's a very transparent and authentic one. And inside of what he said to me is very profound, that I had to stop fighting the world and do battle with internally. And once I realized that I did the work internally, I now could deal with the world more effectively. So I was blown away by the quote. Pastor Cameron, what about you? What's your take on that?
It's a very good quote. And once, with me, once I realized that I can only be me. There were times in my life where, when you look and try to be someone else or be what someone else wants you to be, it takes away from your authenticity of who you are. And once we realize that I can only be me, and along the way, being me, I'm going to make some mistakes. But once I make those mistakes, the key is that I learn from those mistakes. And the way that I learn from those mistakes is that I have to surround myself with
positive people that can help build me and steer me in the right direction. So once I understand that it's not me fighting the world, once I understand who I am, then I can build me and become the person that God created me to be. So I think it's a very good quote.
You said something I'm going to emphasize, because I often tell people, who are your no people? Because we like to build a peak team of cheerleaders. We like the yes people, everybody who's going, woo, you're great, you are awesome. Oh, that was on point, that was perfect. I said, if you want a real authentic and loyal person, you're going to find that person who's going to say, no, I don't recommend that. No, you could have said that better. No, you could have done that better. No, I expect better out of you. Right. So let's stop looking to the cheerleading section and look to the section who's a little bit more quiet, where your authentic people rest. I think that's very important. Mr. Adams, what's your take on that quote?
As soon as I heard that quote, I was thinking two things. Like, there's one quote, if any of you guys seen The Matrix with Keanu Reeves, and they were at the Oracle, and they was like, there is no spoon. That was the one quote I thought about when I first heard this Kendrick Lamar quote. And then the second quote I thought about was one that I created myself. That is, your possibilities are as limitless as your imagination. So, just thinking about this quote about all these different things that are weighing us down and have oppressed us and made it a harder challenge for us to just live life. I kind of like to use my imagination when it comes to reality. I like a break from reality. I know all those things that happen, but I can still become a doctor. I know I've been dislocated from my children for so much time, but I could still be a good force in their life right now. If you limit yourself by some of the things that a Black man has dealt with, and you have no imagination, there's a ceiling, there's a roof, and then you're caged into that. You have to think outside the box and be a kid again. Use your imagination. Anything other than think that it's you against the entire world, because there's way too many people in the world for you to be against the world. So I just think we need to, look outside the box and have that imagination as when we were kids, to be able to create circumstances and visions for our life that are productive.
Excellent response. And I love your quote. And that's very true. And I want to say this for men, even in the virtual audience, who may have been absent for a period of time or things have not gone right. I can promise you, because I work very closely with children, when you show up and show up the right way, children could really care how long you've been gone. I'm going to promise you that. They just want to know that you're coming, you're going to be truthful, but more importantly, they want to know that you're not going to disappear again. They want to know that this is not going to be a repeat cycle. So when you really pull yourself together and make that commitment to show up in their lives again, don't disappoint them again, because you're setting the standard now for the anger, for the resentment, and for everything else that comes along inside of it. So no, you are never hard pressed. It might take some time. You might have to be strategic, but your children are always going to be receptive. They love unconditionally. They truly do. So I leave that with you. Pastor Angus, I'm going to go to the quote one more time. We've had a lot of dialogue. But Kendrick Lamar said, as a Black man in today's society, I always thought it was me against the world. And one day, miraculously, I finally came to understand that it was me against me. What is your take on it?
In the Bible of Moses, God called him to free the children from Moses. He was never good enough. He made the truth. I'm a man of, I stutter, and he couldn't feel like he could talk to people. And with me, it was, wow, why would you call me the pastor? Who would listen to me? Why would you? Why? That was my biggest why. And when I got out of my own way and got out of my own head and let God just speak through me and use me as a vessel like he wanted to. He knew my imperfections, all of them. And when we get out of our own way, we can do some things that we never thought we could do, because it wasn't my plan to pastor anybody. It wasn't my plan to help other people raise their children. It was all going to be about me and getting back on my feet, but God had another plan. And that is true. I like that statement Mr. Lamar made. It is true. When we get out of our own way, God can work miracles with us.
And you've shown by design an example how important it is, especially when God has called you to accept the mantle. Because I did battle with that. I thought I was going to outsmart God. Okay, I give God a couple of months. He's going to leave me alone. God going to go away. And see, you're not going to go, oh, boy, did I learn real quick. When God has ordained and given you a mandate, he's not going to allow you to rest. And to accept that mantle and honor him in his spirit of excellence is very important. So thank you very much for that. Director Waltz, what is your perspective on that quote?
A great quote from Kendrick there. I love the quote. When I heard the quote, it took me back to the men that I had in my life coming up, as well as now that I'm grown. One of the men in particular is my father-in-law, and he is a man that has accomplished so much in life. He's 80 years of age, and I just love being around him, his positive energy, and one of the things that he has always said, I met him for the first time in my life in 1992, when I met his daughter in college at Alabama State University. And what he always said, and it's a very simple quote, very simple: if it's to be, it's up to me. I mean, he says this all the time. And he said to me, Colin, this is what I use to help me through life and accomplish all of the things that I have accomplished. Because he figured out at a very young age that it was not him against the world. It was him against himself. And once he figured that out, he made it his life journey to share that with other young men. And I was just so happy that he shared that simple quote with me, because I shared with my boys and my daughter as well, you know, that if it's to be, it's up to me. No one else is going to create for you. No one else is going to dream for you. No one else is going to live your life. You have your life to live. And in order to live it to the fullest, the obstacle that's in the way is yourself. Of course, we know about all the systemic racism. We know about all the obstacles the world can throw up in our way. But if it's to be, it's up to me. I cannot allow those things to try to dampen my spirit, to try to shift my vision. I cannot allow the world to take over my life. My life is ordained by Christ. He is the one that's ordering my steps. And that is the spirit that we as Black men have to carry with us at all times. Because if you don't carry a self mantra, if you don't carry Christ with you, it can become very easy to be broken. And once you are broken as a man, I've seen broken men, broken boys. We can get to them, but broken men, it's a tough task to bring a broken man back from being broken. Once he's broken, it's tough to bring him back. So I encourage all men out here in the virtual world to have yourself a self mantra, to take Christ with you everywhere you go, and to share with your children your self mantra, and let them know that you are a child of God. We are here to teach our children. And if we do not teach them who they are, where they come from, I love to tell my children, I am your earthly father, but you have a heavenly father. He blessed me with you. And I received that blessing. And I thank the good Lord for seeing fit to allow me to be a father, for putting his love and grace and mercies into me. I was not this way as a young father. I mean, it's work, you know, it's a day-to-day, every day when you wake up, you have a new opportunity. And if it's to be, it's up to me. I just wanted to share that. And thank you all so very much for having me on today and allowing me to share with not only men of color, but men of the world, because we are all one brother. We are all one brother. We all speak the same language. I've traveled the world. Men have challenges throughout the world, and we tend to pull from one another. And I encourage men to get into groups with men. Sometimes it's hard for us to become part of groups, but it's helpful. It edifies you as an individual. It just helps you along as a man to be a part of something good and positive in life. So I encourage all men to be a part of something good and positive in life. And Christ is a great start, man. Christ is a great start.
Absolutely, well articulated. And I'm going to co-sign you on that, because I share with Jacoby that I believe he's started something that needs to continue. He's fostered dialogue in a community with some amazing accomplished men in different disciplines. And also, it not only needs to continue amongst men of color. And I want you to hold on to this, because the most insightful, productive, and solution-oriented conversation is going to go across the line. We need to understand what the other side is thinking. We need to understand their perspective and their perceptions of us, so we can dispel any myths and we can right any wrongs and we can fill in those blanks appropriately instead of having people assume. So let's continue to have the dialogue, and let's broaden what the forum looks like. But I want to take you on a secular journey from that quote. He said that it was fighting against the world at first, and then he realized it was fight within himself. I've had several young people tell me, well, now we're fighting against the world. We're fighting against injustices and the racism and the oppression and everything else that is in today's society. So I don't really buy into that. And I said, think about it this way. Racism, oppression, and all of these things are being imposed on individuals in today's society who are not dealing with themselves. So it's a secular pattern. If we don't deal with ourselves, it brings us right back to the sense of responsibility of self. Because if we're dealing with ourselves effectively, these things would not be a reality in today's society. And I pray that makes sense to you, because that was my goal, to get young people to understand that. What Kendrick Lamar said was mind-blowing to me, because he's absolutely right. When I stopped fighting people and processes and all of these different things out in the universe and deal with me, I show up different. And what is definitely a cemented understanding is, more than likely, I will not be a part of the problem. I will be a part of the solution. So that is my end piece tonight. And I'm going to allow Coach Brown to give his sentiments. Pastor Thicklin, you're going to take us out, and then we'll go back to Jacoby for the wrap.
Thank you. I actually want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the fathers getting themselves together and getting back into the lives of their home. One thing that that needs to also be connected to that is that the moms not badmouth the men, especially in front of the children. And I know it's difficult because they're hurting, they're broken, they've been mistreated, and I get that. But don't have that conversation in front of the children, because they love their mama, especially these little boys. They will do whatever it takes for their mamas. But I can tell you this: whatever took place between my mom and dad, that's between them. But I never, I'm 50 years old, heard my mother say one negative thing about my father, ever. And I never had any kind of ill will between, what happened with them. That wasn't my business. And the thing about it, I always wanted to be like my dad. But I found out, going to what you were asking, I couldn't be him, because that's him. I had to be me. Mm-hmm. And things that the world wanted me to be, things that my peers wanted me to be, my peers wanted me to do, it wasn't me. So once I found out that my calling was to help young men and young women, it was much easier for me to live because I was battling with a whole lot of things like, okay, what do you want me to do? But I also realized that I had to go through what I went through growing up in order to be able to help other children that are going through the situations that I went through as a child. And it wasn't awful. I'm not gonna say that because my mom never had me want for anything. In fact, I didn't know we was broke at the time of growing up. She never, I mean, she told me she was an educator, her starting salary was $4,000 a year. And I tell you, it goes deeper. Her mom put 2 children through school and they don't know how she afforded it because she was one of the grandmothers that went and, you know, cleaned houses and did laundry. But she made a way. And we all know how that way was made because it was by the grace of God. And just like Adrienne said, I'm still alive. Yeah. I'm still alive because that hit hard, and I'm gonna reach out to him. That hit hard because Pastor Angus can say, he can attest, we went through a whole bunch of stuff around here. And all it would have taken was a wrong step one way, but God knew that he needed me. He didn't need me. He wanted me to do what I'm doing now with these kids. And in order for me to do that, I couldn't step that way. I had to step this way. So in order for us as men to continue to do what we're doing as men, we have to be careful of what we say. We have to be careful of what we do. Not that we're going to be perfect, but we just have to be mindful because people are always watching. And we can't tell a kid not to do this and then we turn around and do something different. Okay, so they watch it, especially in Jacoby's situation, in Pastor Angus' situation. When you're working closely with kids, they talk. Okay, they talk. And you'll be surprised years down the road who will come to you and say, you know what? And Jacoby's a witness. You made a difference in my life. And you don't even realize it. You could have said one small thing that just is normal to you, but that could change the child from not wanting to commit suicide, but rather want to push on because you gave that kid some attention. The kid that normally stands in the corner, doesn't have anybody in his corner, but you reached out to him and said, hey, how you doing today, man? And sometimes they're in shock. But it's a blessing because it was put on our hearts to be the men that we are today. And I want to say I'm proud of you, Jacoby, and I'm thankful for being on this panel.
Wow, that was amazing. And if I can encourage you in any way, my encouragement to every man listening and whoever catches this on replay, every day you rise up, stand up, dress up, and you go out, you're on stage. And it's not a performance. It's a mission. It's a blessing. It's an honor to pour into the lives of people, but you got to know the spotlight is on you. You've got to know that people are looking and trying to figure out who our Black men really are. You got to know that our women have expectations of you. So every day you rise up, you're on stage, but it's not a performance. A performance is something you train for and you get on and you act and portray yourself and you do a tremendous job, but it's a mission. It's a goal. It's something to be accomplished and well executed. And I want you to never forget that. Pastor Thicklin?
This has been so rich tonight, very rich. And it's very rewarding. I think I find myself as being the elder statesman here. And what's important about that is that I came here 38 years ago as a 17 going on 18-year-old young man. My mission was ahead of me, knowing that I was called to impact the lives of people and to do so. There's a few things that we taught that was consistent. We taught the fact that the secret to one's success or failure can be found in their daily routine. We taught things like the fact average was not your friend, it was your enemy. Never strive to be average because it's just as close to the bottom as it is to the top. But we also taught them the ability to not allow somebody else's opinion of them to define their reality of who they were. These are foundational things that today you can line up any of my kids and you can start it and they would finish it because they was inbred with the same thing. What I know for this is that it takes resilience to be a father and to be a man. You've got to be able to do so. To every man that have ever parted from their children's mom. I'm telling you, the 7 secrets of effective fathering tells you that you can't depart hating, you must still learn to love, because your kids are going to receive what you give out. The reason these kids are successful is not because I was great, but because I understood something that was powerful. Love conquers all. By statistic, my children should not have achieved what they have. 5 kids in college, 4 college graduates and waiting on another one to do so. I was laughing at Pastor Angus because he's talking about UCF, my UCF dad shirt. Now, why is that? I have 2 UCF grads, and I was debating tonight what shirt I was going to wear. Florida State dad, FAMU dad, UCF dad, a Remington dad. And I say that because of this fact here. What I do know is this, is that once again, it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. Gentlemen, my life work have allowed me to work with both ends. Children in school, children growing up, and then spending the other time I have with men in prison coming out. To this day, men are getting out, still calling, 10:30 at night. I'm out, what you taught me was great. What am I saying? Is that you're always learning and you're always teaching. For the father, Sabrina, you said something earlier, which is something I actually spoke on Father's Day last Sunday. And I addressed the men who had been out of their children's lives, the men that may have been incarcerated, or the men who just might have been away. And one of the challenges they have is the fact of, where do I fit in now? You may not be able to go back into recapture the first ball game or the first recital of change diapers, but you fit in, get in where you fit in and learn that role and perfect that role there and learn, because ultimately children are more forgiving than we think. The fact of the matter, they're as anxious to know who you are as you are to know who they are. And the smallest thing make a difference. Man, I notice you hold your face like I hold mine.
Yes.
I notice you eat the same thing. You do that too, and it breaks the monotony and it opens up conversation. You realize what you have in person and you build from there. And if you think that's good, wait till the grandkids come, because now that's where the real gravy is now, because man, it's like you just can't wait. Listen, my grandkids are already playing musical instruments and not one of them is over 17 months. Why? Because it's already in the playing the DNA. I started back playing my keyboard because I got to teach my grandkids. I pulled my saxophone back out because I got to teach my grandkids. I got to get my guitar back out because I've got to teach my grandkids, because I understand the power of legacy. Every one of you brothers, you're legacy builders. You're legacy leavers. You're men that have a way of imparting into this world like nobody else can. So think about this. Being great is something that happens in time. We're not born great, we become great as we come. And I'm telling you, Jacoby, you know I love you. I appreciate you. I admire your courage. Great interview the other week there on Channel 5, but I admire your courage because you did what you knew God put on your heart to do. You set out to do it, to make a difference, to give back everything that you think a young man could need. And that's why we stand with you, we stand by you, and that you continue to make the imprints on the lives of others. I am so grateful. Sabrina, you always are the perfect moderator. You know what to say, you know how to steer it and to bring these things out of men, because men need to be appreciated. And I want to close with this one comment, because one of the brothers said earlier, I think Coach Brown talked about the fact it would make it a lot easier if the mothers oftentimes would just simply not speak anything negative against them. And so what I want to say to every woman out there, men go through enough as it is. A man's greatest fear is the sense of being inadequate. His greatest fear is the sense of being inadequate. When he doesn't feel adequate at all, it's already a burden. You sitting on top of his shoulder simply is like a gorilla sitting on his back. He doesn't need that. If you can't build him, don't press him down. Pray for him and pray that your kids will see the best in him, because they will see the best in him if you simply allow them to do so.
Thank you so much. I knew you were going to round it out perfectly, and you did. My message to you, and I want each man on this panel, anybody who's listening, to understand this. You are your own. You are your own. And that gives you the freedom to define your life in accordance to God's will. But remember that no matter who tries to label you, no matter who tries to box you in, no matter who has a judgment or bias or perception against you, Black man, you are your own. Thank you for the opportunity to moderate ×2. I'm honored and I'm grateful. Jacoby, to you.
I would like to say thank you to everyone that has served on this panel. Thank you for Sabrina for always being that great mentor that I've always needed to through all this, through thick and thin. She always say, I'm behind you 100%. I'd like to thank my dad, of course, for agreeing to being on this panel and for me to give him his flowers while he's still alive. And that's something that I'm learning now as I'm getting older, is to start giving my dad his flowers while he's alive, not while at a funeral, so he can hear it from me while I'm alive, you know, how much I appreciate him for all he's done for not only me, but my sisters. And I like to also thank my wonderful team that is behind me 100%, Young Man Distinction. And I'd like to thank my sons as well as my wife, who is, as Sabrina would say, is that person that can be very not my cheerleader, but more so of tell me what I don't want to hear, but I end up still listening. And I like to thank my mom, because my mom is also the same way. So I married somebody that's like my mother, so which I'm very appreciative now. So, and again, I like to thank everybody for watching this amazing panel. I'm always leave as a student to sit around and listen to all this great knowledge. So I hope everybody takes this knowledge and apply it some way into your life, because I know I do every time I leave these panels.
This was well executed. The vision was artfully played, and it is my prayer that God continues to bless you all. Thank you so much.